Okay. Hello, Introduction to Theater. Today is Thursday, December 10th, and we are continuing our discussion of the golden age of American radio and how it connects with our fall production, our very first virtual production of It's a Wonderful Life. So, past couple of days, we've been looking at radio as an art form. We talked yesterday about the difference between stage acting and radio acting, or voice acting rather. And today we're going to talk specifically about sound effects. Okay, so as we experienced with that podcast from the Kennedy Center about radio, particularly about the horror genre in radio, we've been discussing how as dramatic radio developed, so did a need for convincing sound effects. Some effects establish the background of a scene. A story taking place in the woods at night might have crickets chirping, an owl hooting, and a coyote howling, for example. Some effects are achieved with a library of special recordings. So one of the things that we've been doing during It's a Wonderful Life is we have been, myself, my production managers, and my assistant director have all been combing through free sound effects libraries, looking for things that have already been created. But the other exciting thing that we've been doing is actually creating our own original sound effects. And as the slide says here, for some scenes, a radio sound effects crew could employ a battery of turntables playing many recorded effects simultaneously. Other effects are done vocally. Certain performers specialize in reproducing baby cries, animal sounds, or blood-curdling screams. And so what all of this leads into is what is known as Foley Artistry, which is an artist who is employed to actually create dynamic sound effects with the use of props. And these people are sound effects specialists. So some examples of things that they do: thunder can be simulated by shaking a large sheet of metal. Galloping horses can be reenacted by pounding coconut half shells in a sandbox. Fun fact, if you are a Monty Python fan, and if you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the Python comedians actually make a big joke about that with the banging of the coconuts. The crunch of footsteps in the snow can be created with bags full of cornstarch. Specially designed boxes are created to reproduce the sounds of telephones and doors, and sound engineers kept a large supply of shoes and various floor surfaces on hand to reproduce the sound of footsteps. So we're going to watch this video now. This was actually created by a theater company that actually did the show that we're doing. And ideally, in a non-pandemic situation, if we had done this show, we would have had our actors live on stage in a recreated radio studio with a live Foley artist. But due to the pandemic, we are limited in our ability to gather and perform together. So everything is done virtually. And what you're about to see is something that you will actually hear in It's a Wonderful Life.
Hi, I'm the Foley artist, and so some things that are exciting about what I do is that we have like different options and really cool things that we've got to talk to you about designers and things like that. So fun things that are exciting to do is that they may look similar, but these are two very different kinds of doors. We have ones that just like a regular sounding door, but then we have things that are like creaky. So it's like really fun getting to explore and figure out what is like the right material that makes that kind of sound. It can be challenging sometimes when you have certain elements where you have to like have a train pulling into the station. So you have to do one thing at one time and then pull the train into the station at the same time. So it's really exciting. Getting to do other stuff, you have to remember to pick up the phone. So it's just all these really tiny little things that just make it so intricate, almost kind of like a movie. So it happens like right in front of your eyes instead of like things sort of behind the screen. Fun things like a car horn, which is my favorite. I love it. Simple things like doing like a dinner scene where you just have silverware and plates. You obviously simulate eating food. Silverware down on a plate. It's just been a really cool process figuring out exactly what sound you have to do because people recognize these sounds. What the door sounds like, the car door, the car pulling up. So it's just been really cool getting to figure out, like pills falling on a floor, like you want to make sure it sounds really accurate and especially with this production, it's A Wonderful Life. And it's a big deal to a lot of people. So it's just really cool getting to do all these things. Dialing your phone. So it's been really awesome and I love it. Walking in snow. Having shoes on your hands for walking. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Hello? Yes? We're almost sold out. Get your tickets right away. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so that should give you a little idea of how Foley Artistry works. Now, obviously, we haven't been able to do it that way, but a couple of things that I showed yesterday, a lot of the sound effects that we've been making, since most of us are working independently in our own homes, little things like this. Things like that. What we've been doing, which is really kind of cool with technology, is that just about all of the actors and all of the crew members, we all have smartphones. And what we do is we record voice memos. And the actors and my technicians have been sending me voice memos. And basically I take those voice memo files and I start putting it all together into a wee video file. So I'm going to show you one. I gotta save this last one that I was working on. I'm gonna play one for you that has a number of different sound effects. And so what I want you to do is just see if you can listen and kind of figure out just how many different sound effects you hear. Sound good? Okay.
You sent for me, sir?
Yes, Clara. A man down on Earth needs our help.
Splendid. Is he sick?
No, worse. He's discouraged. At exactly 10...
Hold on 1 sec. I didn't have the audio up loud enough for the people who are live for me here today to listen to. So let's try this again. So what I want you to do is just listen carefully and see if you can determine how many different sounds you're hearing. So I'll kind of give you a heads up. One thing that you just heard was music. It's meant to be like an angelic sounding chorus. And then you've heard one actor so far, and then you're going to hear another actor. So that's 3 already. So let's figure out by listening really carefully how many other things that we hear.
You sent for me, sir?
Yes, Clara, a man down on earth needs our help.
Splendid. Is he sick?
No, worse, he's discouraged. At exactly 10:45 p.m. tonight, Earth time, that man will be thinking seriously of throwing away God's greatest gift.
Oh, dear, dear, his life? Then I hope he got married dress.
You will spend that hour getting acquainted with George Bailey.
Sir, if I should accomplish this mission, I mean, might I perhaps win my wings? I've been waiting over 200 years now, and people are beginning to talk.
What's that book you've got there?
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, sir. I was reading it when you sent for me.
Oh, fine book. Excellent. Well, you do a good job with George Bailey, and we'll see about your wings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, if you're going to help George, you'll want to know a little something about him. Look, see the town?
Why, yes. A group of young boys tugging down a snow-covered hill onto the ice. This is amazing.
And here comes the scare baby, my kid brother, Harry Bailey.
That's your problem. George Bailey.
A boy?
That's him when he was 12, back in 1919. Something happens here you'll have to remember later on.
I'm not scared, boy. Come on, Harry. Oh, dear. That's all the ice. I'm coming, Harry. In the chain game. A chain. So, his brother told me tonight. But where's Susan? Thanks, yes, sir.
Okay, so if you were to go back to our slides here, the task is to identify 10 sound effects that you noticed. So what are some things people heard in that clip? Cooper? Birds chirping? Anybody else catch that? What else? Hunter? The wind blowing? Good, what else? Paisley, did you notice anything? A little louder. The music, absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, well, let's hear one more.
You're late.
Yes, sir. Hello, George. Hello, Mary. Hello, Violet. Mary was your first. I'm still thinking. Please, Georgie. I like you. You like everyone. What's wrong with that? There you are. Bye, Georgie. See you later, Mary. Made up your mind yet, Mary? I'll take chocolate. With coconuts? I don't like coconuts. You don't like coconuts? Say, brainless, don't you know where coconuts come from? Look at here, from Tahiti, Fiji Island, the Coral Sea. What's that you got there? A new magazine. I never saw it before. Of course you know. Only us explorers can get it. I've been nominated for membership in the National Geographic Society. Let me give you your ID. Is this the year you can't hear on? George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die. We're going out exploring someday. You watch. Wait and see. Yes, sir? Yes, sir. Goodbye, Mary.
No.
Anything back here?
No.
What's the trouble, Mr. Bell?
Never mind that. Take those capsules over to Miss Lane.
Yes, sir. Yes, it's here, sir.
What is it? Who do you think you're talking to? Did you hear what I said? Get out of here.
I know you're happy. Right, I put it on your set. It wasn't the fault, Mr. Garland. Look. Mr. Garland, look. Whoa. It wasn't the fault, Mr. Garland. Poison.
Poison?
All I want is I want to
George.
I know what you mean. I won't let you go. If you want to tell anyone about those pills,
Oh,
if you not married a girl, you gave a little spoil.
we'll get there soon enough. When George said he wanted to go to college, we just wanted the money. We worked 4 years in the Building Loan Association. George's father was in the building loan business, along with George's father. George. How old is he? That's right.
You're wrong.
Thanks. Oh, well, don't forget what I'm Henry F. Potter, the richest and meanest man. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bailey. There's nothing quite so lonesome about the family business. Now, Peter, you know what I'm here for? I'm on a very tight schedule. A family business.
I'm actually going to pause it for a second because it sounds like the people at home are having a difficult time hearing it. So let me try unplugging the sound here and see if that helps a little bit. You'll still be able to identify the different layers of sound because I think people here live in class were able to get their 10 different effects.
George, what's the combination to the safe?
We wrote it down so you wouldn't forget it.
Ah, that's right. Where?
Your wallet, Uncle Billy.
Thanks.
Lovable fellow, just forgetful is all. That's Henry F. Potter, the richest and meanest man in all the county. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bailey. There's nothing quite so lonesome as a family business. Now, Peter, you know what I'm here for? I'm on a very tight schedule. A family to evict at 3. Okay then, Mr. Potter. Here's the thing. I just need a little more time. Just 30 short days. I'll dig up the 5,000 somehow. Have you put any real pressure on those people of yours to pay their mortgages? Times are hard, Mr. Potter. A lot of people are out of work. And foreclosed. I can't do that. These families have children. They're not my children. But they're somebody's children, Mr. Potter. Are you running a business or a charity ward? All right. Not with my money. Mr. Potter, what makes you such a hard-skulled character? You have no family, no children. You can't begin to spend all the money you've got, so I suppose I should give it to miserable failures like you and that idiot brother of yours to spend for me.
He's not a failure. You can't say that about my father.
George.
You're not. You're the biggest man in town.
All right,
Don't
son,
let him say that
thanks.
about you, Pop.
I'll talk to you tonight. What kind of business are you running here? Good God, man. George worked for his father.
Okay, so hopefully it sounds like the people at home were able to hear that last bit. So in the chat and live here in class, let's name some other sound effects that we've heard. We've heard birds chirping, we've heard wind whistling. I'm not sure if anybody mentioned water splashing, but what other sound effects have we heard? Good, from somebody at home, a door closing. Paisley? Say again? Yes, absolutely. There's chatting happening in the background. Good. What else? Anything else? The chiming, right? A chiming of a bell when the door opened and closed. Anything else? Did you hear anything else besides the stuff that's been named? Yep, foot stomping. There's a sound effect that as I'm listening to it, I definitely need to redo because the little boy, George, is supposed to be slapped. And it didn't come through very loud. So and you guys may not have even picked up on it. When I was listening, could you hear it? So the way that you do the slapping noise is you actually take a belt and snap it. But it sounds like when I was working on those sound effects, we didn't get it quite strong enough. But that's a really common way to do that sound. Later on in the play, somebody is supposed to be punched. So we have to take a head of lettuce and punch into it. That's one way that you make the punching sound. And I think what's really interesting is even with the internet, even with digital sound, a lot of times what we can find in sound libraries just isn't quite right. So it really is valuable to still create our own sounds. For example, the rotary phone that I just showed you, I looked everywhere trying to find a digital sound of a rotary telephone, and nothing sounded right. So that just meant that we get to create our own. The murmuring and different things like that really add layers to the story. They allow our minds to engage our imaginations, right? And that's what the discussion about theater of the mind has been all about. So it's really interesting. And I do really, really want to mention that if you are so inclined, if you are able to, please definitely support our theater arts program. Tickets are on sale right now on the website for Broadway On Demand, which you can find on the theater website. I'll be sending it out on Schoology. And tickets are $5 to listen to this wonderful soundscape that our talented artists have put together. So let's take a look at what else we have here.
Saving enough to see him through.
Okay. So by now you should have identified those 10 different sound effects. And then to kind of touch back on what I mentioned earlier this week, it's really interesting in this age of, our cell phones going obsolete within a year, that we look at this golden age of radio that only lasted, a couple of decades, and it really was brief in terms of the history of different art forms. I mean, theater is over 4,000 years old. And, even by comparison, film is only a little over a century old. So I guess it's all relative in terms of, how long art forms last. So when American network television finally made its first inroads in 1948, radio was in a vulnerable position. It's interesting because people were so attached to these stories that they would, engage with once a week. But there is something really powerful about having our vision engaged in storytelling as well. And I mean, I guess it's debatable if we're talking about which one is a better way, to tell a story. I think radio allows us to engage our imaginations in ways that television doesn't. Television and movies don't engage our imaginations in the same way. And in fact, it's a lot easier on our brains. It's less work. But television, it was within a decade after radio's big golden age, television had really taken over. So many famous radio stars had moved to become television stars. And, instead of being aired live, more and more programs were transcribed. So as a result, primetime radio soon lost much of its immediacy. And when programs went out live, the listener knew that an announcer could make a blooper, saying an unintended or forbidden word. An actor might miss a cue, a sound effect might not work, anything could happen. So with the onset of transcribed shows, the listener knew that little unseemly would happen. There's a lot more control over it. As much as our show is called a live radio play, if you tune in starting next Wednesday, it's not live, it's a pre-recorded show, which gives you a lot more control. And I mean, what historians say is that, you know, that lack of control was kind of what made radio so exciting. It's what makes live theater so exciting, you know, that spontaneity and that excitement of a live performance. So, pretty easy question. Which technological innovation took radio's place? Take 1 minute, answer that question if you are at home, if you are here live in class. So click to that slide. Okay, so super easy one, right? Which technological innovation took radio's place? Television, yes, television took its place, absolutely. Now the next question is, do we think we might be seeing a new golden age with the popularity of podcasts? So I don't want to assume that everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to podcasts. So everyone here at West Hills is actually very fortunate to have a librarian like Ms. Sandvald. She introduced me to the genre of podcasts. I had never really been into podcasts before. Let me see if I can still find this easily. She has a really nice website. And I should have done this before class. I apologize. So let's see. Things to check out, participate. She had this really awesome link to podcasts at one point because the 10th grade team had assigned podcasts for some of our assignments. And there is one in particular that I would definitely recommend to anybody who might be interested in science fiction, might be interested in, you know, kind of apocalyptic future kind of stuff. There is this amazing podcast called Limetown. And the premise is that it's a 6-part podcast that started it all. And here's the premise. It's all fiction. 10 years ago, over 300 men, women, and children disappeared from a small town in Tennessee, never to be heard from again. American Public Radio reporter Leah Haddock asks the question once more, what happened to the people of Limetown? And some of the reviews that have come in, Limetown heralds a renaissance in radio drama. So I'm going to play this for you really quickly, just a bit of the first episode, because I'd love for you to make that connection between what our theater program here is doing with It's a Wonderful Life, what you have learned this week about the golden age of American radio, this podcast, which has been so hugely popular the last couple of years, so that after we've listened to all of these things, then we can go back here and really think about how to answer that question. So if you've already answered it and you haven't considered all of these things, I'm going to tell you right now, you haven't answered it thoroughly enough. So let's give this a listen.
Hey there, the holidays are here, so it's good to know Ralph's can save you some time with free pickup on all your fresh favorites. Whether your traditions call for a hearty helping of juicy ham, ample apple pie, or Aunt Sue's legendary twice-stuffed stuffing, Ralph's has got you covered. So order for free pickup at ralphs.com or the app, and get more time to get your holiday on when you grab your groceries curbside. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Reports of violence erupted today in the research facility known as Limetown, located in White County, Tennessee, and home to over 300 residents.
Emergency services have gathered to the isolated location as smoke rises from somewhere on the property.
The first time most people heard about Limetown was on the night of February 8th, 2004.
911, what is your emergency? Hello? 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 Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. What is the nature of your emergency?
Emergency services of Limetown. Ambulances are the fire and police damages and the whole.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down. Ma'am, are you still there?
17 minutes later, the first responders arrived to the outside gate, followed shortly thereafter by local news station WVPK, where they uncovered the troubling reality. No one was allowed access into Limetown.
Samantha, can you tell us what's going on?
Thanks, Ron. We're standing at the outer security gates of Limetown, and as you can see, there is a large gathering of police officers and firefighters here, but they are not being allowed into the facility.
Not being allowed? What do you mean they're not being allowed? Who's not allowing them, Samantha?
Well, we can't get anyone to speak to us right now, but we can see that there is a sizable security presence on the other side of the fence, and there seems to be an ongoing conversation. Can someone tell us what's happening? Sorry, we're being told to clear the area now. There seems to be a lot of confusion.
The reason or reasons for their denied access remains a point of contention. The next morning, there was no visible activity within the community.
There is no one on the grounds that I can see, but there does appear to be a large smoldering bonfire, I would guess. There's one large stake in the ground. It's hard to make out from here what I'm looking at.
For the next 2 days, Limetown was dormant. All attempts at contact failed, and on the morning of February 11th, the security team left their post. Police officers on the scene were prevented, presumably by their superiors, from stopping the security team for questioning.
The security at the front gate is now driving away from the facility.
Sir, can you tell us what's happening?
The gate to Limetown was left open. What the world discovered was the complete disappearance of every man, woman, and child in Limetown. 327 people.
Officer, what can you tell us about the investigation? Where is everyone?
Let me ask you again.
Nobody's here. Nobody's here? What do you mean by that?
Everybody's just gone.
The story exploded, gaining international attention.
Our top story from the United States this evening.
You've just been listening to an indecipherable 911 call. Saying is they need to check those caves.
We have checked the caves, okay? Enough with
And then, just as suddenly as the story of Limetown landed, it evaporated back into the 24-hour news cycle, swallowed by the first legal same-sex marriage in San Francisco, the announcement of successful human cloning in South Korea, war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, marriages, scandals, weather, drugs. The story of Limetown became a tragedy, among countless other tragedies.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to hear that clearly here in class and at home. You know, for purely selfish reasons, I am such a huge fan of Limetown. I was so completely blown away by the storytelling capabilities that are out there for podcasts. And I think all of these things are interrelated. Podcasts, the golden age of American radio, the pandemic especially, because this is what a lot of theater companies are doing at the moment because people can't be in the room together. And with technology, if I go back here to WeVideo, I can show you, if I go to my media here, you can see that, you know, if I'm looking through here, I can see over 20 different characters that can all record their parts at home. And then I can piece all of it together with, gosh, just about anything. So, you know, I can layer in music. I can put layers of weather into a scene. I can add dialogue, rushing water. I mean, you name it, and you can either create it or find it somewhere. And it seems so simple when you look at it like this, but then when you consider all of the different ways that you can layer these things in, you suddenly get this atmosphere, this mood of a story where you have somebody talking, you get a sense of the setting because of the weather sounds, the type of music that might be in the background, the sound of crowds, the sound of sirens, the sound of babies crying, the sound of people shouting, the sound of a 911 call. All of those things layer together to come, with the effect of theater of the mind, where we can really picture everything happening in our minds. So with that in mind, I want you to take a couple of minutes and try to answer that question. And in about 2 minutes, I am going to go over the specifics of how you turn in your final tomorrow, your Reader's Theater final. And then next week, we'll just be doing some other kind of light activities that will help your grade. And yes, so I'm gonna walk away from my computer now. If you're working from home, please answer this question, and in about 2 minutes, I will go over instructions for turning in your final. So who's done with their Reader's Theater video? Nope. Yes? Anyone else? Reader's Theater video? Are we done? What's up? Still working on it? Hey, Hunter, how about you? Yeah? All right. Okay. So turning in, oh, looks like I have a question in the chat. Okay, so for turning in your final project, you'll notice it is an assignment that you do have to submit. So if you click on that assignment, it's going to bring you here to this Google Doc where it says, finish editing your video, click finish. And so if you see on WeVideo, there's a little blue button up there that says finish. So once you do that, I've given you a little guide here, then you click export. That's what the screen will look like if you're doing it correctly. And then you will click the share icon once it has exported. And you will copy that link to your clipboard and paste it here. So, under no circumstances should you be in this screen right here, which is basically your editing screen, and copy and paste that link up there. If you do that, I'm going to get a little notice that says I can't open it because you haven't finished your project. So this blue button, finish, is the most important thing to do first. And then you have to export it and follow all of these steps. I didn't get too many students that made that mistake last quarter, but I received a few that were done incorrectly. So make sure that you are finishing your video and then pasting the WeVideo link right there in that box and submitting that assignment. This is your final. We will have some more work next week, just little things as we finish out our quarter. And just as a final note, in quarter 4, the biggest change you are going to see is that we are going to have daily required Zoom sessions. You will not have to have your camera on, but you are required to attend. What I have found is that students that are attending regularly or watching the videos regularly are doing better in the class. They feel more connected, they're understanding the materials, they're understanding the assignments. So the option to do everything all online without having any interaction with the teacher during Zoom calls will not be an option in quarter 4. Zooms will be required in quarter 4. So just letting you know, so that we can have daily interaction and you guys can get the most out of your experience with theater. So that is what I have for you for the day. I look forward to seeing you live in class tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed everything that you've learned about American radio, podcasts, voice acting, and sound effects, and I'll see you tomorrow.